The rehearsal guide is all about rehearsals, and I love rehearsals. They're just some of my favorite things because, one, you get to be with your friends, two, you're playing great music, and three, if you're doing it well, you can see a transformation from how you started the rehearsal and how the music sounded then to when you end the rehearsal and how it hopefully sounds better. And then you do that over and over again, and it just builds confidence, and you realize that these things are really working, and the work that we're doing is paying off. Here, it's a pretty long document, and there is a lot of information, and you can read through it at your leisure. There are some really important things that I want to point out now, though, in case you don't get through all of it. Number one, you need to set goals. You need to set long-term goals, and you need to set short-term goals. And long-term goals could be something like a performance at the end of a semester. It could be a competition. It could be anything a little bit further out for you, whatever that looks like. Number two, you need short-term goals. And by short-term, I mean really short. So what are we going to do in this rehearsal? What are we going to do for the next hour? And also, what are we going to do next week? Those are the type of short-term goals that I'm talking about. And you need both of them. And that is one of the most important things in rehearsing that you can do to really get a leg up. And it's not a secret, it's just that a lot of groups don't do it. And so you end up wasting a lot of time, and you end up losing track of what the big picture is. So in the outline and in the document, I talk about how to set those goals, but it needs to be done as a group. It doesn't have to be a long, involved thing. For us, at the beginning of rehearsals, usually someone asks, what are we doing? What's the point? Are we doing the first movement? Are we doing the development? Whatever it may be, we need to look at the difficult spots. We need to do the transitions. But those are group decisions. And everyone has different needs, right? And so you have to acknowledge those, and you have to come to a consensus about what is important for the whole group. And the little goals need to stack up and lead to the big goal, right? Make sure your little goals are in alignment with your big goals. Don't work on things in your rehearsals that aren't going to affect the big goal. And that's kind of obvious, maybe. But for us, when we're working on a piece for a concert, maybe we have a gig, right? We have a wedding gig or something. And so we're going to use rehearsal time to practice the wedding gig stuff if we need to. Well, that's not really leading towards the big goal, right? So either make extra time or spend very little time on that, the least amount of time possible. But that's just an example of how your little goals need to shoot you directly towards your big goals. The second thing that I wanted to mention is about empathy. And it's a word that we don't use very often, but it's so important in rehearsals. And basically, it's this idea of putting yourself in another person's shoes and taking their view, right? If not for a long time, just for a moment. And in rehearsals, we have to do that all the time. Whenever we have an idea about dynamics or phrasing or intonation or whatever it may be, and somebody else has a different idea, well, we have to be willing to put ourselves in their position and think, okay, well, why would they want to do that? How do they want to do that? Let's try it. And when you're rehearsing, the most important and beautiful thing that you can do is try different ideas. It's really an exploration. Rehearsals are like a laboratory, right? And we all come in with our different ingredients, our different personalities, our different playing styles, our different instruments, our different experiences, and we're just mixing things together to see what happens, right? But the process of mixing can be messy, and it can be difficult sometimes. And so you just have to be willing to try things that maybe you really don't think are going to work and you really disagree with. And that's fine. We need to have strongly held opinions, but you have to be willing to try other people's ideas too, because they hold them just as strongly. So it's so important to be able to try different ideas. My advice for you when you have these decisions to make and you're trying to figure out what to do, and somebody wants to phrase this way and another person wants to phrase this way, when you try it, don't do it half-heartedly. You have to give it everything you've got, because we have to get to a point where they recognize that their vision is being met. So if they have an idea for how the phrase wants to go, we all have to try it that way and try our best to see it the way that they're seeing it. And then we try it the way this person wants to hear it or wants to see it. And then, we can go around and do it as many times as we need to until we find a way that everyone agrees on is the best way. What happens so many times in almost every rehearsal is, I'll speak about myself, I have a really strong opinion about phrasing or articulation. And usually it's the first violinist. We usually go back and forth the most, John and I. And she'll have very strong opinions about the articulation and the phrasing. And so we'll go back and forth. And so it's like, okay, let's try it. And just be quick to play your instruments. Be quick to play. And the advice that we got from the Emerson Quartet was talk less, play more. And that is so important. You just don't talk as much, and you won't. It's just better for everybody. Just close your mouths and just play. And because the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof is in the playing. So when you play it, it either works or it doesn't work. And you can talk all day and get in a lot of disagreements and arguments about it. But what really matters is how it sounds. So what happens, going back to the story, is we'll try it her way and then we'll try it my way. And oftentimes I'll actually prefer her way after everything is said and done. And I've come into the situation thinking that I want it done a certain way, that I hear it a certain way, I know it has to be like this. And then we try it her way and we try it my way. And then I think like, my way really wasn't very good when you put it together with the group. And so then what do? You just choose the best way. And then you forget about it. And if you're quick to play and you're empathetic and you're not harsh with your words, then that's not even a bump in the road. That's just the rehearsal process. But if you are harsh and unyielding and unwilling to change and unwilling to try new things, then that becomes a really big deal. And that's when groups fall apart. And maybe they're still playing together, but they're not really invested in the music and in the goal. And at that point, it can be really difficult to rehearse. And rehearsal is no longer a fun thing to do or a fun place to be. So my advice to you that was passed down to us from the Emersons was talk less, play more.